Hi everyone. So today we are going to see the PyGame video number 2. So in this video we are going to see how to create a players, how to create the enemies, and how to kill the enemies, and as well as a scoreboard, background music, and as well as a game over display. So those things we are going to see. So first of all, what are the things we need to create it? So that is algorithm, our algorithm. So background music, that is the first step, and the player setup, enemy setup, bullet setup. So all the setups we need to done, and the player movement, enemy movement, and bullet movements. Those things we need to do that. And if it is a hits bullet hits enemy, so what need to be happen? So that is bullet collision with the enemy, and scoreboard display and game over setup. So these are all the 10-step process we need to do that as part of creating game. So I'm going to mention how to do all those things. Okay, so step number one, we have to load the music first of all. So loading the music, we have some module called mixture inside our PyGame library. So we need to import that particular mixture part. So mixture.music.load will give the background score. So and it needs to be played for the infinite time. So till our we are mentioning a exit button. So I have mentioned -1 here. So if you see here, so this is the step I'm explaining. So initially we are importing this mixer library, and also PyGame also we are importing as a PG. So we can use the PG dot mixer dot. So that is also in a fine way, or we can use this way also fine. It will work. And the player setup, the first thing is the image needs to be loaded for that game image. In previously in our previous video session, so we have mentioned how to create actions for the buttons, and as well as how to load the image at the background. So those things we have seen. Same way here also the player location, and as well as the player image needs to be mentioned here. So player image we have mentioned, and player x-axis and y-axis location also we should mention, and we should call these things. So the image these particular player setup will be loaded in our screen. I will show you the code walkthrough as well. So the step number 3 is the enemy. So we are going to create a 6 enemies. So I have created the list for all 6 enemies. List is a data type. Later, it's a collection data type. So we are going to collect all our 6 enemies and its positions. So we need to create a random position between 0 to 736. So I have mentioned 0 to 736. Our screen is we have created with 800 into 600. So between that particular range, the 800 is our x-axis position. So 0 to 736 at any position of x-axis, you can create the enemy's image. So that is the x-axis, and y-axis we are targeting up to 50 to 150. So we should not create all the places enemies. So it should be at the top. So if you see at our first image, so that's a game we are going to play right now. So we are going to create right now. So we have to mention the position and how the enemy needs to be moved for the x-axis and the y-axis. That is also we have mentioned it. That step number 3. And so each and every movement, so how much it should move in the x-axis and y-axis movement. So this is the enemy setup. Similarly, the bullet setup, bullet also image we have, so we need to load it, and that image needs to be at the very minimal size. So otherwise it will be bigger than your player or your enemy. So you have to take the bullet image with the minimum size. So maybe the 64 bit lesser than the 64 across 64. So we have to take that bullet image, and the bullet position also we have to mention. So it's basically it's coming from the player. So the blue bullet y is the basically the player y place, and the x place it is there, and it needs to be adjusted in the function. So we have adjusted with the player x-axis, so and the player y-axis, so that it will uh, flow through the player actually. So and initially it is a ready state. It should not move until unless we mention a fire state. So we kept the status as x, and the bullet y movement, it won't move at the x-axis, so it is moving in the y direction alone. So we have kept it as a 0 for bullet exchange position. Okay, So, but the thing is, when the player is moved left and right, so it needs to move. It needs to create. So we have mentioned bullet exchange value also. And so this is a player moment. How to? So now we have so far the four steps is creating the player, creating the enemy, and creating the bullet and background music. So no movements yet. So now we just created the variable and we have settled the x-axis and y-axis direction alone, and we have kept it all our necessary prerequisites variables are created in the gaming world actually. Okay, so now we are going to move the enemies and move the players, all those things. How to move that? So we have something called event. Okay, event in the PyGame. Event is nothing but, so we already mentioned previously in previous video, we have created the actions for the buttons. So in the keyboard buttons and mouse also we can give the actions. So that is nothing but event. So if is nothing but the conditional statement we have mentioned. So till the in our previous videos and all we have seen what is if else condition. So we are going to use that the conditional checks. So whether the person is pressed the button or not. If any keyboard button is down state means we pressed that particular button. That is the first step. Yes, he pressed the button. So which button he pressed? So next is event dot keys. He pressed key left. Left means left arrow if he pressed. So then the player X needs to be moved at a -1 position. So he will move a little bit X axis direction. And similarly, if the button he presses the right button, then it needs to be moved at the positive +1 direction. And if key is up, there no need to movement. Okay, so that is the player exchange. So wherever he plays, same place, he should be there. So that is the thing, and we are creating these conditions and all the conditions will be added here. So player x plus player exchange, so the movement will happen here. This needs to be done in the running loop. So we have created earlier while running the screen should running state. That time these particular actions should be triggered, and all other previous initialization should be taken care before our screen display starting time. So and the constraint we should be added here. So here player x is lesser than 0 means so he is out of screen. So this out of screen, he went out of screen, so in the x direction. So he should not move further. So we have kept the constraint as x is equal to 0, and if he is moved beyond 736, and we should not move the player further. So because the screen constraint is there. So we kept it as player x is 736 position. So this is the player movement. Simply, this is I'm just giving the instruction to the computer. If he presses the left arrow, he should move left direction, and if he presses the right arrow and he needs to move right direction. If he releases the button, so he should not move anywhere. And if he is there at the end of the screen, he should not move further. If he is at the right end of the position, he should not move further. So those instructions I have given. Similarly, the enemy movement. So player is going to move in the x direction like this way. So like my arrow mark, this should be moved only one direction at the same x-axis. Okay, but enemy is going to move like this fashion. So if you see my arrow mark, so he is going to create the enemy is going to create it at the top of the screen, and he is moving like this way. So a zigzag manner. So x-axis, first of all he is going to right direction, and then once he reaches the end of the screen, then he needs to move below, and then he needs to come below, and like this way he will once he reaches the last position, the enemy's position, the player's position, the game will get over. So that's how we have created. So I'm going to iterate my all six enemies. Previous screen we have created six enemies. So all the six enemies we are going to create it. We are going to start from if it is lesser than or equal to 0, then we are going to move the player, the enemy from x direction one by one. And if he reaches the end of the screen, then he needs to move below and he needs to move to right direction actually. So this is a x movement in the right direction. So first condition is, so if the player is at this position, then he needs to move one by one like this way. Okay, so once he reaches this end of the position, he needs to come down, okay, 10 position. And then if he is at 736 position, 736 means the screen's end position here, then he needs to move backwards direction like this way. So, and once he reaches the end of this position, he needs to come down and he needs to move at the right position. So that is the thing this if else condition is doing actually. If he is at the initial state, he needs to move to the right direction, that is 0.1 one size. He is going to move one by one, and similarly the if he is at the 736 position, he needs to jump down and he needs to come here and he needs to move. So that's why I changed the x-axis position as well as y-axis position. Okay. Okay, now we have created the player movement and enemy movement. And next step is we are going to create the bullet movement. Bullet needs to be, we are giving the space bar. So if the space bar is getting pressed, okay, then this it needs to be created under the place of, under the if condition of this previous fifth step actually. So when the key is pressed, space bar is pressed, and the bullet is at ready state, then the bullet needs to be created some sound, laser wave sound. It's moved. So and it needs to be it needs to be started from the player's x position, player wherever the player is there. So that's why we have initially mentioned bullet x position as 0, and here we are assigning it as a player x position. Player is wherever the player is there. So from there the bullet needs to be released. Okay, we already mentioned y direction as 480. 480 means so from the screen stop, it's 480 side down, and there we have created our player, and it needs to be moved like this way. The player is moving x-axis like this way, and wherever the player is there, from there only the bullet x needs to be moved. So that's why we have give the bullet x directions here, and it needs to be moved as a straight manner. Okay, so fire bullet, the function getting called, I will show you what is a fire bullet will do in the next functionality. And then if it is x is lesser than 0, then the bullet y needs to be at 480 position, and bullet needs to be ready state. Then that means, so if the bullet is hit at the top or top of the position, this is a 0 position, 0 axis. Then until that, so we should move the bullet, and if not, then if it is reaches the end of this position, needs to be make it as another bullet is created in the y place, y direction 480. So here, okay, um, and it should not move. So if it is ready state, it won't move. So if it is a fire position, then only the bullet will be fired in this way with the bullet y change movement. Bullet y change is, we have mentioned it as a 10. Okay, so it is minus subtractor. So subtractor means 480 is here. So then 460, 410, 440, 430, 420, 400, 230, like up to 0, it will be moved if it is a fire position. If it is not, then it won't move. Okay, so if it is a ready state, it won't move actually. So if it is a fire state, then this will be moved. Okay, and so we need to find out the enemy's position and bullet position. So we are going to use the formula of distance. Okay, so x1 and y1 is the position of bullet, and b is x2 and y2 is the enemy's position. And if you want to find out this direction, a to b direction, so we should use this formula, square root of x2 minus x1 the whole square, and y2 minus y1 the whole square. So at this place, a and b is far away the distance, so we will get so value higher. So if it is moving like this way, and if it is reaches here, so it will be a position is a and b is going to be at 0 distance. and if it is reaches so this is the distance formula. So this mathematical rule we are going to apply, and we are going to fire our bullet, and the bullet, when it is hitting this particular position, bullet needs to be disappear and the enemy also needs to be disappear. So that is our logic. We are going to do that. So that is here 8 and 9 step. So score value initially 0, and the font needs to be used for a score value. I'm given here. So this only the font available in the PyGame. We don't have any other font. We needs to download and we have to use it. This is the inbuilt font which is available in the PyGame, and where needs to be the scoreboard is placed. So x-axis 10 and y-axis 10. So like this fashion, this place I need to have my scoreboard. And collision, is collision is happened, then I am going to pass x position, y position, bullet x position and y position. And this particular thing is using the above formula, this formula, and it is finding the whether the collision is occurred or not. If collision is happened, this particular collision is true state, then what I have to do is I have to create an explosion sound, so that the bullet is hitting the enemy. So we got that sound. It's played, and bullet y, another bullet is going to create it at y position, and bullet state is going to be happen at steady state, and score value is going to update it at 1. Okay, so once more. Okay, and the enemy again, the random enemy is going to create it at the this position in the x-axis, 0 to 736 position, and y-axis it might be 50 to 150 direction. Okay, so some enemy is going to be created, and x-axis and y-axis, so we are going to call this particular functionality. So score show score function, and this score value is going to update it in the show score function. Okay, so that's how it will work. And the 10th step is a game over text. So game over text also, we are going to render the game over button, and true, this is a color, how the game over should be looks like. Okay, true means it should display in the screen, so the true state. And game screen dot blit means it will be draw over our screen. So this is how it will work. And when needs to be game over, it needs to be called if the enemy is reaches at the 440 position. 480 is basically is the enemy's position, so player's position. If it is reaches lesser than that, then any enemy is reaching that particular position, I'm going to move all the enemies to my disappear from the screen, and I'm going to call this particular function, and it will display game over. Okay, so that's how it will work. So I hope you have understood. So I'm going to summarize these steps. Okay, so initially we are going to create a background music, and then player setup, players x and y axis position, enemies x axis and y axis and image position, bullet image and x axis and y axis position, bullet movement, when each button is going to press, and how should the enemy player should move, and enemy is randomly created and how it needs to move, and bullet movements towards enemy. So that is a bullet movement step, and bullet collision with enemy. So if it is hit, so what's going to happen. So I'm going to on scoreboard display and game over display. So now we are going to play our game. Okay, so this is how it will looks like. So this is the enemies are randomly coming over here, and once enemies reach hitting this particular position, the game over is going to be displayed. So I'm going to play this particular game right now, so you can see that. So this is my code I have mentioned you. So initially the screen creation, caption and icon creation we have discussed earlier, sound creation, player setup, enemy setup, bullet setup. So all the initial setup has been taken care of first, and the scoreboard, game over, everything is created. This is a game screen. Under there, image and the x and y position is there, and enemy position, and firing the bullet. When we presses the fire button, the bullet is going to passing from the x and y's middle of the position. So that is this one, and this is the formula of distance. So enemy x minus x2 minus x1 the whole square, plus y2 minus y1 the whole square. That is as root under the root. Okay, so if this distance is lesser than 27, I'm going to the collision is happen. Okay, so if it is nearer to the particular enemy, then I'm going to return the functionality as a true. So the collision happen. So scoreboard like this way it is getting updated, and game over is like this way display. So running is a true means the screen is going to display. Under there, I am going to do all over the actions. So event is nothing but PyGame event dot get. Whenever we are pressing some key, so this is the action is going to call. And quite, if I mention this quiet button, it needs to be escaped from the screen. So that is that. And if it is a key is down state, we are going to move our players. And if the key is pressed as a space bar, then a bullet is at the ready state and it needs to move. This fire bullet is getting called. So I think I have not mentioned in my that particular screen. So fire bullet is getting called if it is when the person is pressing the space bar, it is initially at ready state, and that will be called as a fire bullet state. And fire bullet is our functionality, which is we have mentioned in the above screen. There our bullet state is changed as a fire, and this is getting mode. Okay, and if it is up, if you are releasing any key, and the player should not move further, and that is why we have mentioned like this way. And this is a constraint, and this is enemy creation. And if it is reaches here, the constraint is there. If he is enemies reaches the below our player's position, this game over needs to be displayed. Okay, all those things. Okay, so this is how we have created. And finally, the every run of our loop. Okay, this is under the while loop. Every while loop condition is ending, the game display needs to be updated with these above conditions. So all those things we have mentioned here. So I think I have pretty much explained all those functions here. So to summarize here, so we initially created all the players, enemies, and every variables in under the some universe, and we have created the movement while it is an active state. Okay, and we are hitting the enemy and we are getting the score. So likewise, we are continuously calling the one by one instructions. Okay, so I'm going to run this particular game, and I'm going to play this game till the game over. Yeah, so we now played the game. So this is how this game is looks like. So we have given all our constraints, and accordingly this game is worked. So hope you enjoyed this, and we have implemented all our basic learnings here. The if else condition, while loop. While loop is basically keeping the screen active till we are pressing the exit button. And if else condition we have utilized when we are giving the conditions for the keys. So likewise it works. Hope you enjoyed. So we will see in the next video.